The familiar hum of Weatherfield was in the air as Tracy McDonald prepared for yet another departure. Her suitcase was packed, but this time the mood was different. Tracy had returned to the cobbled streets a month ago after spending time in Spain with her boyfriend, Tommy Orpington. It was meant to be a fresh start, a chance to rekindle a romance that had seemed promising. But doubts had crept in, and Tracy had spent weeks questioning whether she truly belonged by Tommy's side. Now, with a heavy heart, she was leaving Weatherfield once more. The streets were quiet as she stood outside No. 1 Coronation Street, glancing back at the home she had shared with her family. Ken, Amy, and Cassie had all gathered to bid her farewell, offering warm hugs and good wishes before she headed off to the airport. Though her departure felt like a temporary escape, there was a sense of finality to her decision. Weatherfield had always been her home, yet Spain called her back. As she hugged Amy goodbye, Tracy couldn't help but notice the unease in her daughter's eyes. She had been through so much in the past year. Paul's death had left a shadow over the community, and Amy was still dealing with the emotional aftermath. Tracy gently brushed Amy's hair from her face and smiled. "I won't be gone for long, love," she reassured her daughter, pulling her in for a final embrace. "I just need to figure some things out." Amy nodded, but her expression betrayed her sadness. Watching her mother leave once again felt like a piece of her family was slipping away. Ken stepped forward next, offering Tracy his usual fatherly advice, while Cassie stood to the side, quietly observing. But there was one person Tracy still needed to speak to before she could leave. Her estranged husband, Steve. She found him sitting at the Rovers, staring into his pint with the weight of the world on his shoulders. Steve had been through his own trials recently, navigating life as a single father and managing his feelings for Cassie. The tension between them had been palpable for months, and Tracy had noticed the way they looked at each other. As much as she had her own unresolved feelings for Steve, she knew what needed to be said. "Steve," she began as she slid into the seat across from him, "I'm leaving again." He looked up, startled but unsurprised. "Yeah, I heard," he mumbled. "Spain again?" Tracy nodded. "Tommy and I are giving it another go, but that's not why I'm here." Steve raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" Tracy took a deep breath. "Look, I know we've had our ups and downs, but I see the way you look at Cassie. You've got feelings for her, and she clearly feels the same. Don't waste time, Steve. Life's too short." He stared at her, taken aback by her candor. "Cassie and I don't know." Tracy placed a hand on his arm. "You deserve to be happy, Steve. If it's Cassie, then go for it. Don't let your past with me hold you back." Steve was silent, processing her words. He hadn't expected Tracy to encourage him to pursue someone else, but deep down, he knew she was right. He had been tiptoeing around his feelings for Cassie for too long. "I'll think about it," he finally said. Tracy smiled, standing up to leave. "That's all I'm asking. Take care of yourself, Steve." With that, Tracy McDonald walked out of the Rovers, her head held high. She knew her departure wasn't permanent. She'd be back in Weatherfield eventually, but for now, it was time for a new chapter. As she headed to the airport, her thoughts drifted to the life she was leaving behind and the advice she'd given. Whether Steve would heed her words remained to be seen, but she hoped he'd find the happiness she couldn't give him. Meanwhile, the residents of Weatherfield continued to mourn the loss of Paul Foreman, whose battle with motor neurone disease had come to a heartbreaking end. Though Tracy's departure was temporary, Paul's was permanent, leaving a hole in the hearts of those who loved him.